Peace and blessings to the family. It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Broadcasting Community. Shout out to my brother, the General 78 Sports TV. Shout out to my brother, Jared 11 Green, the entire Southern Baller Show Collective. Shout out to the Louisiana All-American Sports Network. And shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. This is a video edition of the Tailgate Party. This is season 1, episode 24 of the Tailgate Party. And instead of me doing a live stream, I decided to do an extended video edition of it. The reason being because for individuals that have been asking me for something behind the scenes, I got something coming up this weekend in terms of something they've been asking about. But I'll get to that in this particular video edition of the Tailgate Party, Season 1, Episode 24. I'm going to talk about who has the best fan base in the SWAC. Now, after my last live stream, my words were twisted, and there's some mistruths and some falsehoods out here, all right? From Bleed the Blue. JSU fans on X, on Twitter, say straight out of a Jaguar mouth, go JSU Tigers. Go JSU Tigers. Best fans in the FCS. All right, so Bleed the Blue said that Coach 67 Sports TV, straight out of a Jaguar mouth, go JSU Tigers. JSU has the best fans in the FCS. I never said that. I never stated that. What I said was that Jackson State fans are the most vocal fans in the SWAC, in HBCU football, in FCS, so on and so forth, right? So JSU fans took that and ran with it and said that I said that JSU has the most passionate, the most loyal fan base in HBCU football, in the SWAC, in FCS, so on and so forth. No, what I said were they are the most vocal. They are. And essentially, their response was, if you say it is the most vocal, then what that means is, if we're the most vocal, we're the most passionate, and we're the best. And unfortunately, that is categorically incorrect and wrong. Of course, in my personal opinion, I'm going to always say Southern University has the best fan base. The best fan base in the SWAC and in the FCS. That's my personal opinion. But in regards to the Jackson State fans that's saying, hey, since they're the most vocal, that means they're the best. No, you can ask other fan bases all around the SWAC and all around HBCU football, and many fan bases around HBCU football and the SWAC will say, yeah, y'all the most vocal, but that doesn't mean y'all the best. If anything, other fan bases will say JSU fans are the most aggravating and the most annoying because they're the most vocal. And not only that, but they're the most delusional. Now, that's not me saying it. That's just people I talk to in general. So at the end of the day, we could play semantics. We could play the semantics game. But at the end of the day, I say they're the most vocal. And I stand on that. And we see it all across, multiple SWAC football or just SWAC Facebook groups. We see it all across HBCU football Facebook groups. We see it all across social media. So, yeah, they're definitely the most vocal. But in terms of that makes them the best, no, it doesn't. Now, we talked about this particular topic on HBCU Fanatics last week. Again, shout out to my brother Jared 11 Green on his channel, which I'm his co-host in terms of HBCU Fanatics. And basically, he was like, if I had to remove Southern out of the equation, who would I say is the best HBCU fan base in terms of loyal, attendance, so on and so forth? Now, at one point in the late 90s, Southern and Jackson State led the FCS in attendance like every other year for like a handful of years. But he was saying that was one of the major metrics. But in terms of who's the most passionate, the most loyal, the most supportive, so on and so forth, I'm like, it fluctuates. Because at one point in 2019, when Alcorn State was like the top football team in the SWAC, I would say it seems as if at that point in time, they were the most passionate. The reason being is because the school I worked at, like, we had a few individuals that graduated from Alcorn State. And not only that, but since Natchez is a pipeline from Natchez to Baton Rouge, you got a lot of people from Natchez that live in Baton Rouge. And like I said, one year when Southern played Alcorn at AW, like, there was like a whole row of people from Natchez behind me, and me just talking, I'm not lying, they were cool, it was good trash talk back and forth, good banter, and I'm like, why so many people from Natchez, moved to Baton Rouge? And he said, I'm just gonna be honest, he was like, it's far enough away from Natchez that you out of town, but it's close enough, since it's only 90 minutes away, it's close enough to where if something happens, or if there's an emergency, or something happens at home, I can just hop in my car and just, go back to Natchez. So that's why there's so many people from Natchez that live in Baton Rouge. And essentially, like, literally the whole row of people behind me were all Alcorn State. This was like a few years back. And every last one of them was from Natchez. So at that point, especially like in 2019, when Alcorn State, won the SWAC championship, when we went to the SWAC championship game on a reservation, to me, it just seemed like at that particular point in time that Alcorn State had, the most passionate fans and the most loyal, most supportive fan base in the SWAC. But more than anything, it's cyclical. To me, outside of Southern, taking Southern out of the equation, like, it's cyclical. At one point, it seemed like where I'm from, on the bayou, South Louisiana, Barrows, Louisiana, like, outside of people from my area going to Southern, there were a lot of people from my area that went to Grambling. Like, even the starting running back on our team at Assumption, before Brandon Jacobs was the starting running back, Brad Hill was the starting running back, he went to Grambling. Like, I had a few teammates of mine that went to Grambling. And in addition to that, like, a lot of people from my area went to Grambling. So I knew a lot of people that went to Grambling. And especially like in the 80s, like early 90s, like, Grambling fans were all over the place. And I think at that particular point in time, like, Grambling State was like synonymous for HBCU football and being the face of HBCU football. And of course, that eventually changed in the 90s when Pete Richardson came to Southern. But at the end of the day, I think it's cyclical. Just taking Southern out the equation, who would I say is the more supportive fan base in the SWAC? Who's the most loyal, so on and so forth? I think it's cyclical, at least from my perspective and my point of view. It varies, it goes in ebbs and flows, so on and so forth. So, that's addressing the straight out the mouth of a jaguar. Who's the best fan base in the FCS? 10 times out of 10, I'm going to always say Southern. And of course, I'm biased. I can admit I'm biased. So, of course, Jackson State fans are going to feel the same way. Grambling fans are going to feel the same way. Alcorn State fans, whoever, you're always going to say your team. So, that's my personal opinion when it comes to that. I think Southern University has the best fan base in the SWAC, but, if I had to remove myself from the equation, I really wouldn't pick one, because I think it moves in waves and cycles. One other thing I want to talk about too, since this is in the extended version, extended edition of the Tailgate Party, Season 1, Episode 24, one thing I also want to talk about was, the money that's owed to HBCUs. I talked about this, a few times in the past, and I read this article in which the state of Louisiana owes Southern University over $1 billion. And I'm going to be honest, when it comes to money owed to HBCUs, essentially at this point, it's the equivalent to reparations. It's money that's, in all actuality, that's really actually truly owed to HBCUs, but it's money they'll never see. It's the equivalent to reparations, in my personal opinion. Now, if the state of Louisiana owes Southern University over $1 billion, how much you think they owe Grambling? And not only that, let's take every other HBCU, because they were saying, like, in the region collectively, like, HBCUs are owed over $12 billion. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if we talk about certain HBCUs and some of the financial woes that they're having, if the money that's owed to them were given to them, they wouldn't have those issues. So at the end of the day, you know, just using Southern as an example, you know, Southern could use some of that money to, you know, improve facilities, upgrade facilities, so on and so forth, right? However, if the state of Louisiana owes Southern University over $1 billion, I guarantee you they do not owe LSU 1 red cent. And it's just sad how HBCUs are underfunded. And you got even HBCU like Mississippi Valley that went to Donald Trump's inauguration just because they thought it was going to help them from a funding perspective. And essentially, it was just grandstanded more than anything. So at the end of the day, you know, HBCUs, especially in this region, are owed over $12 billion. You know, if you talk about, just say, for example, some of the issues that JSU had with the vet, if the state of Mississippi paid all the money that they owed Jackson State to Jackson State, you think Jackson State would have some of the financial issues they're having, whether we're talking about Grambling, Southern, Mississippi Valley, Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Prairie View, Texas Southern. So at the end of the day, we know, you know, when it comes to resources, when it comes to funding, you know, we talk about how, you know, certain HBCUs are struggling when it comes to finances and resources and things of that nature. But if the HBCUs were given the finances that they are owed, then guess what? At the end of the day, like, some of these financial issues and financial woes different HBCUs have, if they were given the money that they were owed, they wouldn't be going through some of the issues and struggles that they go through. So at the end of the day, I think it's important that individuals like myself who has a platform, and not only that, but just if you graduated from whatever HBCU graduated from, whether it's Southern, Grambling, Alcorn State, Alabama A&M, Texas Southern, wherever, like, it's important that we support our HBCUs, you know, when it comes to, you know, giving, so on and so forth. So that's why these, you know, NIL collectives and things of that nature, that's why they're important in 2026, because at this point you got to pay to play. You know, we see how lawless everything is in terms of the transfer portal and NIL and so on and so forth. And, you know, you got to pay to play. And at the end of the day, I really want HBCUs to thrive and be successful. And not only that, but I want the level of play in the SWAC, I want there to be more parity from the perspective of, I don't want it to be a top-heavy conference where, like this past season, you know, you had PV, Jackson State, Alabama State, and after that, it just seemed like it was everybody else. So at the end of the day, like, we need to get the quality of play up in the SWAC, and it starts with money. I hate to say it. I mean, finances and resources go a long way to get the caliber and quality of players that you need to get in your particular program. The last little topic I'm going to talk about is, you know, somebody was talking to me behind the scenes about, you know, Southern University and how they brought in a lot of good talent. Of course, we know National Signing Day is February the 4th. So, you know, National Signing Day is right around the corner. And basically they were saying that Southern University doesn't have a quarterback yet. So what's Southern going to do but a quarterback and woo-woo? And I'm like, at the end of the day, Southern University, they're going to find their quarterback. In my humble opinion, they're definitely going to find a quarterback. Now, am I willing to say that Southern is going to win the Celebration Bowl this coming season? No, I'm not willing to go out on a ledge yet. However, I'm willing to say that I think the quality of play in all three phases of the game is going to be dramatically up. And basically, he was like, what are some foundational players that was on the team last year that's going to be back this year? Well, I'm like, first of all, offensively, Trey Holly is going to be back. I think from a talent standpoint, Trey Holly is the best running back I've ever seen come through Southern University. And that's saying a lot. Southern University has had, running backs from the past like, Kimbrough, like Lindsey Scott Sr., like Melvin Williams Jr., like Lionel Nicholas, like Steve Warford, like Lenard Tillery III. I mean, just some great running backs have come through Southern University. The late Steele Adams, Gerard Sims, my guy Kendrick Grimes. Southern University has had some great running backs come through Southern University. But from a talent standpoint, I'm going to just be honest. I think Trey Holly might be the best running back I've seen come through Southern University. And honestly, Trey Holly is not the first LSU running back to transfer from LSU to Southern, because back in the day, Jermaine Sharp played with Melvin Williams Jr. and Lionel Nicholas. And truthfully speaking, Jermaine Sharp was a dog, but truthfully speaking, I really think Trey Holly is better than him. So it's going to be interesting to see, how the go-go offense, how it fits Southern. And in addition to that, what quarterback, what experienced quarterback they're going to bring in, and how all the pieces come together. But the offensive line plays improve. Southern has got like good recruits in terms of wide receivers, tight ends, offensive linemen. So you got the linemen, you got tight ends, you got wide receivers. You got Crosby coming from Texas A&M. I think at this point, of course, you already got Barry Remo coming back. So I think at the end of the day, I think the only thing Southern really needs at this point offensively is a quarterback. And I'm almost certain that Coach Marshall Falk and his staff, they're diligently working behind the scenes to get the quarterback they need. At the end of the day, I think Southern going to be fine. And then, of course, they just brought just in a variety of just different players, just quality players, talented players. I'm going to give an in-depth breakdown probably the day after, either on National Signing Day or the day after National Signing Day, just like I did last year. I'm going to go player by player by player by player and talk about, how I think these guys are going to fit in at Southern under Coach Falk and his staff. But from a defensive standpoint, we talk about, players returning. Of course, Herman Bristol III, he entered the transfer portal, but he decided to come back. I'm not going to lie, I think getting him back is huge. I think, his sophomore campaign, it really was a sophomore slump from the standpoint. The talent is still there when it comes to him. However, from what I was understanding, what I was told, he struggled this past season, battling injuries all throughout the season. So at the end of the day, I think if Herman Bristol III is healthy, and not only that, with all the new pieces that Coach Falk is bringing in all three phases of the game, at the end of the day, I think we're going to get back to seeing the Herman Bristol III that we saw his freshman year, guy, someone just wreaking havoc, both in the running game and in the passing game. And that's the thing I liked about him. I'm not willing to go out on a limb and say, he's as good or he's better than, the late, great Sean Wallace, a player of that caliber. But I really think if he has a couple more seasons the way he had a excellent freshman season, I really think he's going to jump up into the pantheon of safeties to come through Southern University, like a Sean Wallace, like a Ricky RV, like those type of players. So at the end of the day, I really think Herman Bristol III, I think he's going to get back to what he was his freshman season, a guy just making plays, constantly making plays. And, I think the sky's the limit for it, as long as he's healthy. And not only that, but all of the good quality pieces that's going to be around him this season. Because truthfully speaking, I'm not going to lie, even though I felt like Southern had a good bit of seniors this past season, like this team this past season, it was a historically bad Southern University team. It was a historically bad Southern University defense. I can't ever remember a Southern University defense being as bad as it was this past season. But at the end of the day, the sky's the limit. They were at the bottom this past season, in my personal opinion. There's nowhere to go but up. And seeing all the players that Coach Falk and staff have brought in, like, there's a lot of energy around the football program when it comes to Southern University. You know, a lot of energy, a lot of juice. The fan base is reinvigorated. They're excited about this upcoming season. But more than anything, I'm excited to see what spring is going to look like, because I'm not going to lie, like, last spring, I got kind of carried away, basically seeing what the team was. I'm like, all right, hey, you know, I think this last spring game for the Blue versus Gold spring game, basically what I was saying is, hey, the quarterback plays better. You know, I think we really going to do something. And the bottom fell out when the season started. But at the end of the day, I think Southern is going to be a much better team this year, this coming season. The sky's the limit. We'll see how things play out. But that's it for season 1, episode 24 of the Tailgate Party. I hope you enjoyed this video edition of it. This weekend, I got something big coming up. So stay tuned. I'll talk about it probably the next couple of days. But on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to have another edition of HBCU Fanatics. So come through and check out myself, my brother Jared 11 Green. And, you know, we're just going to talk about some HBCU football. We're going to talk about, you know, Southern and Jackson State and Grambling and, you know, things happening in the HBCU realm, HBCU football. So y'all be certain to come through on Thursday to check out the latest edition of HBCU Fanatics. Hopefully everyone is staying safe. Everyone is staying warm. Y'all be careful out here. You know, it's extremely cold. It's 38 degrees right now. From what I'm seeing, school closures. Schools were closed today. They will not be closed tomorrow. All those schools are going to be reopened. So be careful during these extremely cold days of winter. And, you know, just stay safe, stay warm, and be blessed. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal evening. Peace and blessings to the family. And go Jags, you dig?